My job is all about purpose.
Just the ability to make a difference, you know, to help someone be able to go home at the end of the day.
My great-grandfather started the volunteer fire department in Springfield, Nebraska. My grandmother was a nurse. My uncle was a fire chief in Atlanta, Georgia. So somewhere down the line, it was my purpose to be doing this.
Yeah, we're a family here.
The data we get from Rapid SOS is life-saving.
Have you ever met a 911 professional and asked, what's the worst call you've ever taken? Well, here's your answer. I heard your last breath the night you flipped your four-wheeler. I tried to call you the day you committed suicide by driving your car into a tree. Blue face, cold to the touch. I helped you with CPR after you found your infant face down, not breathing. It messed me up. I did everything I could, but it wasn't enough. You were with me from the beginning, Grandma. 27 years later, I took the 911 call when you died. How fitting to be there for me in the beginning, and I was there for you in the end. I miss you, Grandma. I am 911. This is but a glimpse into the world of emergency dispatch. But what is it really like to answer a call during someone's nightmare? What is the impact of the first responder answering the call? Available on Amazon or where you purchase your favorite books and ebooks. Imagine listening. Your worst day is our everyday.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Okay, so interesting story. What actually pulled me out of the Peace app on my wedding day, my son was airlifted with a blood sugar of 722.
What?
Yeah, 722. So I left my wedding, called 911 because they told me as I got to the church that he wasn't coming, he wasn't going to make it, he was too sick, and he was airlifted. They couldn't even read his sugar. He was in diabetic ketoacidosis, which is usually how people are diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So he's a type 1 diabetic. He was 11 years old. So me on my wedding day with a just married t-shirt, face full of makeup, lashes, and jewelry, on a helicopter with my sedated son, who was then unconscious for 3 days.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by Rapid SOS, Safer Together, the leading AI company in public safety, and a big shout out to subscribers as always. Thank you all very, very much, especially all of you who watch, listen, support, and share, because I wouldn't be able to do any of this if it wasn't for all of you. So thank you for everything. It is March 27th. 2026, and time is just flying by as always. A lot of different things going on, and one of the things that I will mention right off the bat is there's a video that I put out there on TikTok. So for those who are watching and listening, part of public safety and such, especially 911, I put something out there saying that I am looking for videos, just short little videos, less than a minute long, selfie mode, just with your phone, just mentioning your name, public safety, where you're at, your agency. If you want to mention it, you don't have to. You could say, I'm from Northeast Indiana, from a center Northeast Indiana. I don't know, whichever, something like that. And your years of service. And what I'm looking for is I want to know about something that has been rewarding or something that you are proud of in this profession. And then I'm going to be sharing some of those stories during National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week and throughout the rest of the year leading up to August 24th, 2026, which will be the official 10-year anniversary of the birth of the I Am 911 movement. That's right, 10 years it has been. Holy moly. I would have never thought that it would be what it is today. But again, even though I started it, if it wasn't for all of you sharing your stories and what you do in this profession, it wouldn't be what it is today. So thank you all very, very much. And you can send your video to any of the inboxes on social media or to wttpodcast@gmail.com. With that said, I am super excited for my guest today. We actually just met. We have been, I think we've been in passing at different conferences, and we were chatting on LinkedIn recently. We know of each other. But we literally just met a few minutes ago virtually, and I am looking forward to us actually meeting in person at whatever conference we end up seeing each other on the circuit, as they call as they call it. So my guest today is Brandy Powell, and she is the executive director with the 911 Chaplain Initiative. Hello.
Hi. Hi
How are
there.
you doing?
I am so good. I am so good. Home. It's conference season, but I'm home, so that's always amazing.
That is right. Yeah, you've been traveling and a lot of things going on, and you were in Texas recently, which we'll get to all of this as well. But one thing I want to ask right off the bat before we get into your story, what were the lines like?
Okay, so the lines were ridiculous. Um, and I flew to Utah. So I was in line for I want to say 2.5 hours. It was the beginning of like TSA saying deuces. So I was in line for 2.5 hours. My best friend flew to meet me in Texas 4 days later, and she was in line 3.5 hours. Um, Mind you, our perceptions of the line were different because I had my headphones on, I was listening to music, I was like la la la, and my best friend was like grinding her teeth the entire time. So it was a very long line. There are some really amazing, hardworking people who are still there doing their jobs. But I flew out of Atlanta, so to give you some context.
Oh no. Okay. Yeah. No. Yeah, that's all you had to say. That's all you had to say was was the ATL, man. Because oh yeah, when I flew back from Texas earlier this month, I spent over 24 hours in that airport
Oh my goodness.
awake. I dozed off every few minutes, but man, I've never been awake that long.
Oh,
And luckily, thank God, I had some what were they? They were free passes to the Delta Sky Club, and I don't even know how I had them there. It was like they just appeared, and I was just praying. I was thanking the Lord for them because I was able to go to every gate that I got redirected to. They had a club there, and I
yeah.
just went and I just sat
Oh,
because it was chaotic throughout that entire place. I've never seen people just sleeping, like camping out, like down where they have the trams, like the trains and
yeah.
everything going by, and like the conveyor belts, that you walk on to walk faster. In the middle, people were all camped out,
Oh my God.
and every so few, I don't know how many feet in between, but there were power outlets, so people were plugged in and they were just passed out, had their jacket over them. I thought, I've never experienced this before. So
Listen,
I'm glad you got through there.
listen. It feels pretty dystopian. It feels like something's happening. It's very bizarre to spend that much time and to be that laid out in the airport, but it has been a journey. And so this, I think everyone who's traveling forward and this past 3 months has been going through it.
Oh, for sure. Yes. And, God bless everybody who's out there working and the TSA workers that did stay. Thank you. Like everybody
Yeah,
who's out there helping and stuff, because I can't imagine it.
I
Well,
cannot.
and I'm glad you're home. I'm glad you're home and you're able to not have to deal with that stuff right now. But you're right.
Yeah,
We are in prime conference season and things are going to start picking up. So hopefully they all get that stuff figured out. People get paid and those lines won't be like that. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. So I want to go back in time really quick because,
Yeah.
as I mentioned just a few moments ago, you and I just met virtually. So I see what you're doing on social media and stuff, which is excellent work. Thank you for what you do. And I want to know a little more, though, because you have about 18 years in public safety now. So let's go back in time to the beginning. How did you get
Yes.
involved in public safety to begin with?
You know, I could go back to the prime age of 7. No, no. Um, my dad was a cop, right? So my dad was a police officer my entire life. He was he was a sergeant in the army. When he left the army, he went to the police force. And so this kind of, military police work is just been in my veins, I'll say. But I remember being 7 years old. My dad would come by in his patrol car, and I was an actor. I still am. I'm an actor. It's kind of like my major thing. Aside from 911,
Mhm.
acting 911. That's it. And Jesus. So I took out his little book that had the Miranda rights in it, and I learned it as if I was learning a script. And so, 7 years old, I would walk around the house. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law. You have the right to an attorney from the age of 7, and I just knew it. And so it was always there because my dad would tell these amazing stories of all his foot chases, and I can't imagine my daddy chasing anybody because he's up there now. He's not chasing a thing. But I remember him in his uniform, and I remember that. And when I was 18 years ago, I was I had been a college dropout because I was the family caregiver, and I was the one that would withdraw to take care of people, withdrew to take care of my grandmother, and when she passed away, um, I had such tremendous anxiety. I didn't want to go back to school because I felt like I would fail again. And I remember being on this little inventory job on the road, and I saw a listing for Middle Flint 911, a 911 dispatcher job, and it was in 2007, I think. And I saw it. I applied. I went and did the critical. And something happened. I missed the call back, and I missed the opportunity. So when it came, it just kept coming back. I kept looking in the newspaper and seeing it. And so I went there and I took this job, and it was my first 911 job. And I was so overly empathetic that I just cried all the time. I was like, they're so sad, and they're going through things, and he, I don't. How can I help them? Like, it was so emotional. It was so emotional for me, and it took some years before I got out of my like crybaby phase. Which I actually teach a class about being a tenderhearted dispatcher because a lot of people think that's a detriment, but I
Mm,
think it's a strength. When you are caring and compassionate, but you have to know how to use that strength. But
right.
it took me some time. I wept for a while, Ricardo. But I did the job, and I loved it. I loved helping people. I loved the stories. I loved the research that goes into finding answers for people. And dispatchers are solution oriented people, so I've always been that way as well. So to be able to say, I need to find something and no one else can find it, and now I'm the subject matter expert on how to locate things. It's been really amazing. It was a great choice for me, and I did it for a long time.
Oh man. I love that you have that background with your dad. And I mean, what are some of the things that you can remember? Like, you said that there's a lot of amazing stories and everything that comes out of it. Like, do you remember, just being at home and just kind of was his radio on? Like, do you remember like scanner stuff or anything like that going
Yeah,
on?
my dad had some of the most, like, I talk to my dad a lot, and I kind of like, I think I do some of my speeches to my dad before I do them to other people. And this is where I learned a lot of, like, even about moral injury, right? And those coulda, woulda, shouldas that we have. But my dad had some traumatic calls, and he had some really funny calls. And there was one call in particular. There was this guy who, every Friday night, the wife would call and say he beat me up, and they would go, and he would be drunk, and he'd be leaned over in his chair, just completely like not move, not just immobile. And
Mhm.
they would go, and she bruised up, and she'd say, "He beat me," and my dad would they would arrest him every Friday, and then she'd come bail him out, and then Friday she would call 911 again. They would come out. He'd be slumped over in the chair, catatonic, and she's screaming and hollering. And my dad said it was something suspicious about it, but every week she'd come bail him out and never press charges. He said, well, one day, Friday afternoon, the gentleman came into the police department sober. And he says, Sergeant Campbell, I need you to come by my house tonight. He says, brother, I'm already coming by your house tonight. He says, no. Come at 6. Don't come at 7. Come at 6. So my dad said, okay. He said, come around the back. So my dad was like, okay. So that night, my dad said he, like a ninja, snuck around the back of the house and he walked up to the window and he's looking in the window and the man's in the chair, laid over like he's always drunk out of it. And the woman is screaming and fussing and she says, I got something for you. And she goes and she slams the door on her arm. And then she calls 911.
Oh, no way.
Yes. And my dad says, as soon as she got off the phone with 911, he knocked on the door. And she said, what you got here fast? But she was like, every week she would wait till he got just slobbery drunk. She would hurt herself, call 911, get him arrested. And it was over and over. And the guy came sober and was like, come tonight, but come early. And my dad was like, so we arrested her. And then he bailed her out of jail.
Oh, gee. No, it
was their cycle. We know those, right? We know those callers. Yeah. But God bless them. It was just toxicity all the way through. And my dad said, he's like, come by tonight. My dad's like, we're already coming by tonight. We're already planning on it.
Like, it's on the calendar, sir.
It's on the calendar.
We know. Wow. That is not where I thought you were going with it. Honestly, I thought you were going to say that it was like their way for him to, or for her to have some time to herself by, calling him, like it was an arranged thing. Like, you know what, you go to jail for the weekend and chill. You can get your 3 meals, your exercise, and I get some time to myself. No, it was that she was just doing it.
She was doing it to herself, which is crazy, which is a different level. Yeah. But she was like, oh, I'm going to set you up. And then she come get him out. And that was their cycle. I'm like, Dad. He's like, yes.
Wow.
It was crazy. So the thing about my dad was he's such a man's man anyway. And he's such a macho person. And to see him as a police officer was just, he's always been my hero. Mm-hmm. And so when I started dispatching, I remember talking to him and saying, Dad, I'm in public safety now. And my dad was like, well, we used to answer the phones and, try to downplay it. But then he came to see me at work. And, when police officers come into 911 for the first time, their eyes are just like, what is happening? What in the call center, what in the comm center control room is happening? And so he came in and he was like, okay. I think you're doing it too. Okay. And of course, he thinks I follow in his footsteps because my dad's a pastor and I'm a minister. My dad was a cop and I was a dispatcher. My dad, had a plethora of children and I have 4. I think he thinks I'm his little clone. And he's really happy about that.
That is amazing. I love this story. This is so good because, you've got that back and forth. And I'm sure also with anything that you've dealt with, you've been able to have those conversations and, have that support and all where, there are some folks who they don't have that, or they don't have someone who comes from public safety. So then they're just kind of depending on whoever is around that is willing to open up and talk as well. And when you don't have that, then it's, what do? You have to find an alternative. But I love that you have that type of relationship that you can do that. Now, when you had applied though, did you get to do a sit along or anything like that?
Oh, no, so I didn't do a sit along. I did that critical test, which everyone is familiar with, and it was so much fun. I loved it so much. I was like, oh, I want to work for critical. Like, it was so much fun. I was like, ooh, it's like a little, and so I didn't do a sit along. So as far as having an idea of it, I had done call center work, but I'd never done this kind of work. So it was weird. My first big girl job was 411.
Oh, okay.
Which the babies might not know what 411 is. 411 was information.
Right.
And so people will call 411 to get numbers, and I got cussed out frequently, but it was never urgent or anything that needed like the almost case management that we have to do is in dispatch. So I had no idea what to expect. Walked into the center, and honestly, before I left, they were family. It was one room. We were a regional dispatch center that dispatched for 7 counties, and one person did fire and EMS for all 7 counties. And
Oh,
and I remember my trainer, she was our like classroom trainer, Jennifer. And she's so great. Me and her went to school together. So when I saw her there, I was like, hey, it's my buddy. But Jennifer, she'd come in and she has this long, strong southern accent. And she said, all right, I'm working fire and EMS. She said, somebody's gonna die tonight. And everybody just fall out laughing. And I'm like, Jennifer, we hire you out when you first start. Jennifer, she said, Brandy, it's 7 counties. Somebody's gonna die tonight. And I was like, oh my gosh. But sure enough, but it was just so funny. And it was there that I discovered this might be a Georgia thing. So Georgia dispatchers, y'all back me up on this. That the longer you're in dispatch, the more your 10-4 just degenerates. It just falls apart. So the people who were there knew, like me, 10-4, 10-4, and then people who've been there for a while, they go, town, town. And after a while, people were going, chow. And I was like, chow? She's like, chow. And I was like, is that 10-4? She's like, yeah, chow. And I was like, oh my God. It was so funny. So when I'm around like veteran Georgia dispatchers, I listen to how their 10-4 just falls apart. It's like, chow. I said, chow. And it was so funny. But she was so country. She said 10-4. And it was so cute. And then more and more, chow.
wow. I think that's the first time I've heard that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we would say our 10-4s, or we would and when they would click, they would just click us, we would click back, or
Yeah.
sometimes an officer would go, like, he would just sniff.
Really?
That wasn't
Oh my
that
goodness.
wasn't it wasn't their 10-4. It was actually so the deputies, the county and the state, they don't always get
Right.
along, right? So it's just like super troopers in a way.
Hmm.
And this started kind of like that. It was a trooper who had been just talking and talking, and then finally was done, and a deputy came up afterwards and was just like, "Doodle," and sniffed it, and I just laughed, and I was like, what the heck was that? And I keyed up and I sniffed back, and it it turned into a thing that we started
Oh,
doing. We got into a little trouble for it because people got annoyed, but it was funny to us. Like, it was hilarious. But
that is so
and
funny.
like, goat head, instead of saying go ahead, we would say goat head, like goat
Oh
head,
my goodness.
just to see if anybody would catch it. And they didn't always catch it, but sometimes, I would get an MCT message from one of the officers, and they're like, haha, or LOL, goat head. And it was like, all right, cool, somebody caught it. But
You got to
but
do
then,
what you got to do. Yeah, I'm
right,
telling you. At one
especially
point,
in the middle of the
I would.
night.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Totally. I think the funniest thing I ever did with these officers. I tried to send one up when Whitney Houston passed away. I was working in Savannah 911, and I tried to send a message to one of my officers who I knew was just a music lover like myself, and I said, "Lord have mercy, Whitney Houston done gone to glory." That's what I said. This is good. I said she passed away. Lord, Whitney's gone, and I sent it to every officer on the MBTs. I sent it to 100 officers. And I was so mortified. And then they all started responding, Lord, like, oh no, not Whitney. The voice is gone. Like, and I was so embarrassed. I was like, I'm so sorry, y'all. I'm so sorry. That was not what I meant to do. It was meant for one guy. Okay. All right.
That's hilarious though, because the older CAD system that we had,
Yeah.
if we could send it to kind of like an at to someone,
Hmm.
and but if you put it in, and then what was it, there was like another command, like if you didn't put in there all the way,
Hmm.
because if you typed in all, it would go to all of the
Yeah.
officers. But if you typed in something else which was similar to the all, and you hit enter before the other letter, it would send it to all too. So
Oh,
there were a few times that people got in trouble because they were talking they were saying some stuff about one of the officers, and I was like, oh no, dude. I'm like, well,
oh,
that'll learn you. That's gonna be
mhm,
there.
there you go.
So when you find out though that you're, or even that first day, let's look at that first day
Okay.
that you're walking in. What is it that you see? So you're walking in that first day. Are there multiple people on the floor working at the same
Yeah.
time? Are there, like, 80 monitors? Are there a bunch of
Wow.
keyboards? And also at the same time, how are you feeling? Are you feeling overwhelmed or just super excited?
I was super excited. We came in and we had a week of like classroom training where we did liability. We talked about call taking, and we did a few. I think maybe it might have been 2 weeks of training. So we would go in our breaks and sit in the room, and it was dark, as you know. And I'm surprised I'm in the light right now, because I still like to sit in the dark. So it was
So
dark.
do I.
There's I mean, countless screens. I was kind of like, wow, what is this? What's happening? And I think they had multiple keyboards and multiple this is when I started my, Brandy, is it mice or is it mouses situation in my head. I was like, I've never had more than one. So I went through that, but I would sit with them and I was kind of in awe because, I may have always had a little hero complex, and I was like, oh my gosh, you guys are saving lives. Like, you're doing the thing. And so, of course, like, I'm listening to the radio traffic. It sounds like gibberish, because, almost every radio channel sounds like a different language. And, but the more I sat, the more I heard. And I remember distinctly when I got with my trainer, and I just loved her to pieces. Her name was Kristen. We had our little umbilical cord. I was connected to her with the cord. And I remember, yeah, I remember, um, I have this thing where I'm scared to like chew or eat where people can hear me
Oh,
eating. And I thought, because like we're listening to each other
yeah.
breathe, that she could hear me chewing. So I would eat chips and I would suck the chip. I wouldn't chew the chip. And I would go, and I would just suck the chips. And she looked at me one day, and I didn't know she knew I was doing this. And she said, Brandi, you don't chew those goddamn chips. She said, you're here sucking potato chips. She said, just chew them. It doesn't bother me. I was like, I don't want to annoy you with my. She said, just, you annoy me more by just sucking on potato chips. Go eat. Eat. And it was so funny because, I mean, I've been sitting for weeks just sucking on the potato chips, scared that she would hear me because all I heard was this echo in my head. I was like, oh my God. I was so mortified. But the first few calls, like it felt like every call was like, trying to set me up for like a stand up routine because everything was funny. Everything was funny. Like, people calling about their porch being stolen. Like, excuse
They're-
me? Their porch being
okay,
stolen.
I heard you right. Okay, then.
Yeah. And I was like, and the guy was so matter of fact, like it had happened before. He was like, yep, they don't took my porch. Yep. I went to open my door and it's gone. And I was like, are you in a mobile home? He's like, yes, ma'am, but I don't have a porch. And I was like, okay. And so someone stole his porch. And I was like, I had to learn where the mute button was fast because I have a crazy sense of humor. I almost moved to Chicago to do comedy writing. So I look like funny stuff is funny to me. And these people were funny. And then there was one call when I first started. This woman called. She was passing by. She saw a man in the ditch. And I was just, oh my God, oh my God, this man in the ditch. Oh, we're in, this small little Georgia town, community. And I'm like, there's a man in the ditch. Oh my God. So I was looking on the map and I'm finding out where he is. And I realized he was the next county over. So I called the dispatch for the next county over and I was like, hey, this is Brandy with Middle Flint 911. We had a woman who called and she says on this street, at this mile marker, there's a man laying in the ditch. And she says, okay, ma'am, is he wearing all black? And I said, yes, ma'am, he's wearing all black. She says, ma'am, he's okay. That's just where he chooses to live.
Okay.
Okay. And I was like, excuse me, that's just where he chooses to live. He resides in that ditch, ma'am. He's okay. There's no need to see anybody. And I
So
was like,
it's
oh,
one of their frequent flyers.
yeah, I guess he just like, this is where he camps. And like, there were no homeless people in my hometown. Like, it was a very small town, little college town. And so there were very few homeless people. And one thing I found out we did in my hometown, this is because I worked for the, with the police.
Mm-hmm.
In my hometown, the reason we didn't have homeless people, and this is almost cruel, they would ban them from every business in town. And once you are banned from every business in town and you have no domicile and you have nowhere to live, you can't stay there because there's literally legally nowhere you can be. So when he got banned from every place in town, they put him in a patrol car and took him to the county line. And I'm like, okay, now you're Lee County's problem. I was like, my lord, my lamb.
What?
Yes. I was so blown. I was like, this is crazy. This is
Holy
crazy.
moly.
Yeah. And then they let me do a ride along. So I did a ride along with a police officer. And this was scary because the officer was a black officer. And he told me, if you saw my brother, he was like, your brother's big. He said, I don't know. I'll probably shoot first. I'm like, hey, what kind of training we got here? And then I got really nervous about police. And so it's funny because I worked for the police for 14 years, almost 15 years. And I still was shaking when the police would pull me over because I did a ride along with a kind of a janky cop.
Right.
And I was like, that's my experience. And weirdly enough, when I did the ride along, he let me come in the house. And I don't think I was supposed to. And it was a mental health call. And it was my cousin.
Oh, no way.
Yes, it was a distant cousin. I knew her mom, but I didn't know her. And she had schizophrenia and she was talking to her ponytail. Like a ponytail, and she was talking to it. And her mom used to have mental health issues. Her mom was so calm and sober and clear headed and like lucid. And she was sitting there and she said, are you a police officer? I said, no ma'am, no ma'am. I'm the dispatcher. She says, oh, did you answer our call? You came out real fast. And I was like, the dispatchers don't normally come. We don't come. Oh gosh, she's gonna think that we're coming. And for years, people were like, "Are you coming? Are you coming?" I'm like, "Baby, I'm not coming. I'm not coming."
See, that's the problem with Halle Berry in The Call because people think that you're going to go out there.
They do.
I've had people say the same thing to me. They're like, "So, is it like The Call, like with Halle Berry? Like, did you get to go out there and see people?" I'm like, No, like that's
Mm-mm.
not
No.
reality. Like I've been on ride-alongs, but it's not. But the same as you in a way, not with any relatives or anything, but what, which is very interesting as well.
I know.
One of the ride-alongs that I did was with a state trooper, a canine officer, and before we went in to pick up this girl on a warrant, he goes, so we're going to this apartment complex. We're going to pick this girl up. He goes, she knows that I'm on the way. She knows everything that's going to happen. I said, okay. And but we're sitting in the middle of the driveway leading into where the parking lot is. And he goes, since you're riding with me, I just want to make sure that you know where all of the guns are. And I said, okay. And he goes, because you're my backup if something goes down. I said, bro, I was like, I wasn't expecting for something like this to happen. I said, are you for real right now? And he goes, you're my only backup. And I said, okay. So he's showing me like all the weapons and everything. And he goes, and if anything, here's my old pistola. It was like this old 6-shooter revolver. I was like, where did you get this from, Wyatt Earp? Like, this is crazy. So he's showing me all this stuff and we go in and he goes, I want you to come in with me. And I was like, am I supposed to do this? And he goes, come on, we got to go. I said, okay. So we walk in, I'm standing by the door. He tells me where to stand. So stand by the door. The boyfriend comes out with the girl and immediately he says, who he is. And then he points at me and he goes, this is my friend over here. He's my backup. Don't do anything. He's basically saying that I was going to be the one to handle him, and I'm standing there staring as firm and strong as I
Yeah.
could be. But in the back of my head, I was thinking, I don't think this is how this works.
At all. Not
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well,
Yeah, not at all. That was That was a day. That was an interesting day. Like they all started laughing though, so I was like, "Oh, did I get set up?" But we got the girl and we took her in and they were talking like they've known each other forever. I don't know. Maybe he was related to her. I don't know, but
I don't
we
know.
but
They
the
know
rest of
the
that
they know
day
the
was
community.
crazy.
That is
Yeah.
so funny. Oh my gosh. I would have been like, no sir. Oh my gosh, sitting in the car trembling. That's so funny.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm glad that you had something happen on your ride along though, because a lot of people that I've spoken to who have said they've been on a ride along during training or whichever, that they have not had anything happen. But holy moly, you were out there with a distant cousin.
And I tell people a lot, like I was, 'cause I worked in my first job was we served like my hometown. And I tell a lot of dispatchers, I'm like, listen, you may answer the phone and it may be like no trigger warning. It may be someone you know.
Right.
And that was funny because yeah, that was literally I walked in the house, I was like, oh shoot, that's my cousin. I only met her like once in real life, but I knew like that her family struggled with mental health issues as a
Mhm.
distant cousin. I was like, that's totally her. She did my hair before. It was so weird. Like she didn't recognize me at all because whoever was talking to her in that ponytail, they meant business. It was an amazing call, and I think I saw this veteran female officer and the way she handled her, and it was so good. It was with such care and concern and amazing ability. So it was really informative,
Mhm.
but terrifying because I should not have been in that house. I should not. Like, can we just do a traffic stop, bro? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, the ride-alongs can be very interesting, and there was a traffic stop that I assisted with during that day as well. We were
Yeah,
sitting stationary in the median of the highway, and he's clocking vehicles going the opposite direction. And there was a white Porsche that passed us. I don't remember how fast it was going, but it was going really, really fast. And he ends up saying to me, "You think we can catch him?" And I said, "I think you're going to try." And he goes, "You're right." And woo, just whips it around and starts hauling. We did catch them. And he tells me to stand outside by the rear view mirror, and he
yeah,
goes, "Just keep an eye on them right here." I'm like, "Dude, like I don't have a weapon to draw or anything," and but he showed me where everything was. They didn't cause an issue or anything like
yeah,
that, and it was a lot of fun. This dude was old school, so
yeah.
he was like, "Yeah, I just want to show you a good time today," and I was like, "You definitely did, sir. I appreciate you. Thank you very much."
Yeah, yeah, he should do all the ride-alongs because that is hilarious.
Oh, for real.
Oh my gosh, so out of my element. That's so funny.
So you end up going through, all of your training and all of that. And you kind of mentioned some of those earlier calls.
Yeah,
Now, throughout your time though, and just as long as you feel comfortable sharing as well, maybe in I'm sure a lot of people have multiple calls that stick with them, but are there any of those that just kind of stand out that have stuck with you?
there was a particular call, and it's one of those things where you can take a type of call over and over again for years, and you just kind of don't know what will affect you. But I took a call from an elderly man, whose wife was unconscious, not breathing. She was in cardiac arrest, and um, it was a very triggering call for me, and I didn't know why at the time. So I took this call, and I asked him could he get her on the floor, could he get her flat, and he couldn't. She was in the recliner. So I asked him could he get the recliner flat, and he pushed it as flat as he could, and we went through the steps for CPR. But he started to cry, and he's like, "I'm too old, I'm too weak, I can't do it." And then he just began to wail. He says, "God, please don't take her. God, not today. Please don't take her. God, please don't take my wife." And at this point, he's not doing CPR anymore. And I'm just on the phone. I'm looking at my map, trying to see when the medics will get there. And I listened to this man beg God for 8 minutes. God, not today. And I heard the agonal breathing in the background, right? So I knew that it didn't look good. And I'm weeping. This is years after I stopped crying. for every call. But I was weeping, I was crying with him and praying with him. And he's like, God, please, just one more day. God, just one more day. Don't take her today, God. Just not today. Just not today, God. And then he would wail and he would like a animal just crying. And they got there and I got the phone and at this point, he's not even hearing me anymore. And I'm like, sir, they're on scene. Can you open the door for him? Can you open the door for him? And he's like, God, not today, God, not today. And I cried. And so we disconnected and I unplugged and I walked to my supervisor, Judy's office. And I just sat and I just started bawling. And I was just so like, he begged God. He said, God, one more day, not today. Please don't take her. Please don't take her. And it just did something to me. It was this the rawness of his voice. It was the passion. It was the love that he had for his wife that I know he probably had been with for 60 years. He just kept saying, I'm so old, I can't do it. I'm so old. I'm so sorry. I'm so old. I can't. And I just felt so bad for him. It's one of those times where you wish you could relieve them of the CPR and help them. But you also know to do it right, you got to break ribs. And she was an elderly woman, so much all at once. And my supervisor, Judy, she just let me cry. And this is one of the things why, I love about chaplaincy is like presence, just having a safe place to cry, having a safe place to exist in your pain or your frustration or your sorrow or your even guilt sometimes. And there was nothing I could have done, but I just was so sad for them. And then I remember because, this was years ago, we would look in the obituaries, every few days we would look in the newspaper and see what was in the newspaper. And a few days later, I saw her obituary, but she didn't die that day. She died the next day. And he got that one more day. And then I went back to Judy's office and I cried again. And I was like, he gave her one more day. He was like, what are you talking about? I was like, he was asking for one more day. And she did not pass away that day. She passed away the next day. So it gave me such peace. Like we never get closure. And I feel like that particular time I got this closure of he was praying, asking for one more day. He most likely wanted a chance to say goodbye. Don't let her, die in our house. Don't let her die in our bed or in our comfort zone and where I'll feel it all the time. Don't let her leave me now. And she made it one more day. And so that was so just meaningful for me. Um, because I felt his sorrow. And as like a super empathetic person, as an empath, um, the world call it, the church people will call it an intercessor. I feel so strongly for people, and I felt his sorrow, and I felt his desperation. But to know that she got that one more day, it was like closure, and I never felt that in all my years in dispatch. So I felt crazy for being triggered by this old man crying. I love my older people anyway, and they always, my heart goes out to older people just so hard, so bad. I love them to pieces. Want to help them as much as I can, and to not be able to just broke my heart. But then to get closure and know what that feels like, it's like, dang, how could I? How I wish that we all could get that for those difficult calls. And I know it's not common, but it was. It turned into a heartfelt, beautiful experience for me to get that.
Wow. That is that is something because we go through our time in dispatch. We have these phone calls, we make these connections. And I agree, we're all empaths. We put ourselves in these callers' shoes to be able to understand what it
Mhm.
is that they're going through to make that deeper connection and
Yeah,
build that rapport to get the answers to the questions that we're asking to get them help, as fast as
yeah,
possible. But at the same time, we're connecting on a human level, and it's even, as you're saying too, spiritually in a way that we're we're that connected with them, and it's just through the voice. It's
yeah,
just our voice, our tone, all of it brings it all together. But also at the same time, to see, like, to read that, to get that closure. And I tell people, hopefully one day, because we don't always get this, but hopefully one day you will get to experience that
yeah,
gift of closure.
yeah,
And you definitely did with this by just seeing that obituary and seeing that he did get that one extra day. Oh my
yeah.
lord, that is That is an amazing story.
Thank
That I
you.
was kind of holding my breath there as you were telling it. I was like, "What?"
Yeah,
You
yeah. Oh
actually
my gosh,
got it.
he actually got it. When I saw that, and I like did the math. I went and like looked to see when the call came in. I was like, oh my god, he got one more day, and it was just, it was beautiful too because as a person of faith, to like hear him praying desperately, and I'm praying and praying desperately, and it's like God answered this prayer. I know there are times that you can't, but God answered this prayer, and then to see that prayer answered, it was a good thing for my faith, because we see so many things in this industry that can shake your faith. And it was really good for me, in that moment. And again, it's a prayer that I have that other other 911 professionals are able to see the end, and maybe it's a more positive end, but still to know what happened, alone is so healing. It's therapeutic. It's affirming that you did the best you could do, and and when you released it, you actually were able to release it. That's a really hard thing for a lot of sensitive dispatchers.
I feel like that call was meant for you in a way because of your experience and because you're a person of faith as well. Like I'm a firm believer that there are some of these phone calls that we take that are meant for us for whatever reason, something in our past that allows us to connect with that caller, to be able to speak with them in a way that nobody else would be able to. And so here's an example. There was a gentleman that I spoke to. It's about a year or so ago now. I was doing a pre-con class in Colorado,
Yeah.
and I had mentioned that I feel that some of these calls are meant for us. And this person came up to me and said, I kind of am kind of struggling a little bit with something that you said, and immediately I'm like, oh no, what did I do? What did I
Yeah.
say? And I asked, I said, well, what was it? And he said that some of these calls are meant for us because of a call that I'm thinking about. And it, the person didn't make it. So if that
Mhm.
call was meant for me, I don't understand because it didn't have a good outcome. And I said, well, I said, for one, we have to be able to give ourselves some grace
Mhm.
that even though the outcome wasn't what we wanted, that at least you have the satisfaction in the sense of knowing that that caller was not alone. You were there with them to help them through that situation, no matter the outcome. And the guy goes, "Yeah, it still just kind of gets me." And he goes, "There's one more thing." And I said, "Okay," because I had said, "What else happened, if you don't mind me asking, about that call? That maybe there's some connections there that you haven't thought about, or maybe there are some there that you have thought about. You just haven't put it in that context." And he goes, "Well, the person that didn't make it, their child was an amputee." And I said, "Okay." And he lifts his pant leg, and he too is an amputee. And I remember gasping, and I looked at him and I said, "That right there, that's your answer." And he goes, "But it didn't have a good outcome." And I said, "That's not the thing to kind of dwell on. Like, I understand, like, again, we wanted the person to live. Like, we all want everyone to
Yeah.
live. We're there to help save lives, and when it doesn't happen, sometimes we almost blame ourselves as well. Like, is there anything else I could have done?" I said, "But
Mhm.
here's the thing." I said, "You two are an amputee. If I had taken that call, I would have been able to tell that person, that mom, anything anything more because I don't have that experience, you do.
Yeah.
So there are probably some things that you said to that person that I would have never been able to connect with that caller." And he goes, "All right, I'm gonna think about it a little more.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you're right." And then he went back and sat down, and I thought, holy moly, like there are these connections that sometimes we don't always think about.
Yeah. That's so true. That's so true. I think, you know, it whew, for me, the empath thing was really about the mobilizing it, the turning it into my superpower was really
Mhm.
about, if I know how you feel, I know what you need to hear to be comforted. I know what you would need someone to say. And I use that to guide me through a lot of crisis callers. And then, the rapport. I always say that crisis calls are like hostage negotiation situations, right? Where it's the same. I teach a class called the anchor approach, and it's the same tenets. It's like I need to build rapport.
Yes.
I need to find out what your demands are, what's deep down, what's in your heart, what do you want, what's your intent, what's your goal, and I need to ensure a safe resolution for you and the responder. So it's very similar to like hostage negotiation. So, but I also uses it kind of being an empath and listening to them, and I would just kind of get to know them and like hear their stories, and I always say find their anchor, find that thing that kept them afloat, and I would use that anchor, and I would use like the ability to be sensitive to that, to speak to them about, well, what if, do you want to see your daughter walk down the aisle? Don't you want to walk her down the aisle? And they're like, yeah, I do. And I can hear their voice, something change in their voice, a tiny inflection. And I was like, well, tell me where you are. Tell me where you are. We're gonna get you to that wedding, right? And so it was always just kind of understanding that what even things that feel like shortcomings, how can it be a skill? There are so many dispatchers, Ricardo, who who have ADHD. Like it's a strong thing. I
Yeah.
feel like you remember middle school where they tested everybody for scoliosis. Middle
Yeah.
school, they took everybody to the gym. They tested us for scoliosis. I feel like year 3 in dispatch, they need to test us all for ADHD.
For real. Yeah, because
I,
yeah, there's
but
the
yeah,
sweet spot between year 2 and 3 where
come on.
you'll feel dialed in and everything, and hey, you could add that test in there when
Yes.
everyone feels like they're dialed in. We're like, all right, now we got a
Uh
test
huh.
for you because we just want to check something.
Yeah, and especially if you stay, because it's, I always tell my son he has ADHD as well, and I tell him like this is your superpower. Like you can hyper focus on things, you can multitask like no other, right? In certain instances, but knowing the knowing you're neurodivergent, or knowing about yourself, the more you know about yourself, the better you're able to use skills that you may have otherwise not known about. So for me, it was that sensitivity. And then I would have people saying, Brandy, I got a suicidal caller. Can you hop on the phone? And I would like, yeah, girl, I got it. I got a little arrogant. For a second, I was sure, girl, I'll take all the like. I mean, just big about it because I just knew that was my thing. And
Yeah.
that's when that one more day call happened, because I was feeling like I'm on top of my game with any crisis call or any life or death situation, and that call sat me on my butt, and I was like, okay, I got to remember I'm still human.
Right. Yeah. Slightly humbled.
Slightly humbled. I'm
Yeah.
still human. Yeah, yeah. I'm not a superhero as much as I would like to be. But understanding like your strengths, and like what you think is a weakness. A lot of times, sometimes, it can be so good in dispatch when you realize, like this is something I've always been good at. How can I use this? And it's really been a eye opening thing for me, seeing people kind of discover things about themselves and be able to like go further in their job because of it.
Oh, I love it. It's a profession that I definitely miss. Um, and like being there on the front lines and all, but I feel like, folks like you and I and others in this space, we are doing that much more in the sense of for like our own folks to be able to give
Yeah,
back. So with
yeah.
that said, a good transition here. Tell me about the 911 Chaplain Initiative. Where did this come from? And I mean, you're doing this now. You've got academies and everything. You're going to
Mm,
Texas and doing this stuff.
yeah.
We were talking a little bit earlier before we went live that a friend who follows and is part of like the open mic live audience and everything, Ryan Rogers, he was out there as well. So there's a lot of stuff going on. So please tell us.
Okay, so interesting story. What actually pulled me out of the PSAP on my wedding day, my son was airlifted with a blood sugar of 722.
What?
Yeah, 722. So I left my wedding, called 911 because they told me as I got to the church that he wasn't coming, he wasn't gonna make it, he was too sick, and he was airlifted. They couldn't even read his sugar. He was in diabetic ketoacidosis, which is usually how people are diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So He's a type 1 diabetic. He was 11 years old. So me on my wedding day with a just married t-shirt, face full of makeup, lashes, and jewelry, on a helicopter with my sedated son, who was then unconscious for 3 days. This is what pulled me out of 911. So I left my job to take care of my son, get him stable, get him on his insulin pump. And I was a federal dispatcher. I worked on a Marine base at this time. So when it was time for me to go back to work, because I was a federal employee, they gave me a secretary job. Because federally, that's what they said I was qualified to do.
Okay.
And I was, I was livid. I was so aggravated. I took the job because I needed the money, but I was a very disgruntled secretary. I was like, how dare you? How dare you? I only have 2 monitors. This is not what I do. What is this? I was so disgruntled.
Right.
So
I need 10 monitors. Okay. Like,
I
this
need
is what I'm
obviously. I need 10 monitors and 2 monitors of mice, or however you want to say it, right? So I was really disgruntled. I was really flustered by this whole thing. I taught myself how to code. I taught myself data analytics. I started taking classes and courses because I was so bored. But I also was like, if you guys think I'm a secretary, or you think this last 14 years of my life, almost 15 years of my life has been me being a secretary, what else do you think what else do you think about 911? You think we're secretaries. What else do we not have? What else are we deprived of? And so that's when I started looking at conferences. I had never in my life been to a conference in almost 15 years in 911. I didn't know, I didn't think I knew of conferences. I had no idea that every state has 2 to 4 and wellness conference and tech conference and, user conference, and that there's national this, and I had no idea. So I submitted to like IPSA, Illinois, and I submitted, a session like, hey, I'm a minister. I've been a minister all this time. Nobody ever checked on me when I was in 911. And so I started thinking, like, has 911 ever had chaplains? And I'm like, okay, so we had police chaplains. They would check on the police and sometimes go out to the community, but they never came to check on us. So I started speaking about 911 chaplains, tending to the heart of 911. And I talked about the need for chaplains, and I was preaching to the choir. So when I would say this, dispatchers are like, duh, we know we're crazy. And I'm like, hey, but we need support. And they're like, yeah, we know we need support. And I'm like, but they don't think you guys are first responders. And they're like, I know, we know this is our daily battle. I'm like, girl, what can we do? And they're like, yeah, what can we do? And I was like, I don't know. So I set a date on my calendar every Friday to have a chaplain chat to talk about chaplaincy in 911. And I continued to travel and speak and start speaking about other kinds of wellness. And everywhere I went, I did a survey to find out who had chaplains. Did they have chaplains for 911? No, it was our sheriff chaplain. Oh, no, it was our police chaplain. No, I've never met a chaplain. All of those answers. And I had this recurring meeting, and I would talk to I remember talking to this guy, Mike from Indiana, and I was like, he's like, well, who's going to do something about it? And I was like, I don't know. I wonder who. Same conversation. I'm a millennial. We don't build. The boomers build, disease build. I'm like, we don't build. And so I went to the Triple T conference from the Tenacious Telecommunicator with Toby and Val. And I went in Virginia, and it was a beautiful conference. And I spoke about chaplains, and everybody there was like, duh, we know we need chaplains. I went to a session about imposter syndrome, and I think it was Andrea King. And I was like, I don't have to worry about imposter syndrome anymore. I don't have that. That's not my problem. And I went to bed that night, and I woke up with the imposter syndrome on my back. I woke up, what are you doing here? Why are you at a conference? You can't afford to be here. These people don't know you. You're not even in dispatch anymore. Who are you to talk to these dispatchers? Who are you to teach about chaplains? You're just a preacher, and you don't have a church, like all the things. And I'm like, yeah, I shouldn't do all this. And it was just so bad. So I cried, and I felt like I shouldn't be here. And in that moment, I started to pray, and I heard God say so clearly, this is who you are. You are the 911 chaplain. That's what you do. You are building this. You need to build this. So that's when I kind of adopted the moniker, the 911 chaplain. And people started calling me that, and I started answering to it. And I went to get incorporated, and I cried like a baby. And Reverend Edie will tell you I'm a cry baby. I cried like a baby at this this nonprofit summit. Everyone else is doing, after school programs for underprivileged youth and programs for single mothers and for the homeless and for the hungry and for, all of these things after, sports programs and food pantries. And they get to me and they're like, what are you building? And I was like, dispatchers are sad. And I just, it was so funny, but I was like, and I just boo cried because I was like, it doesn't feel like what everyone else is doing. It feels very niche. It feels very obscure. It's not been done before, and I don't know who will support it. And I was afraid. And in that session, we were to create our board of directors and reach out and get their information. And I cried again because I was like, who historically, who's going to care about 911? And I just cried again, but I found a board and we got started. And I was so ambitious. I was like, I want to do all these things. I listed all the things. And I was just trying to, just get out there and meet people and still going to conferences. And Tracy Eldridge was like, I see what you're doing. And I know I have someone you need to meet. And I was like, okay. I don't know if I want to meet people. I'm very anxious. She says, but you need to meet Reverend Edie. And so she put us in a group chat, forced me into it. And Reverend Edie and I got on the phone and we had a Zoom call. And she told me what God had laid on her heart about chaplaincy and 911. And Reverend Edie and I talked and cried because what God had given her, I was doing. And she says, Brandy, I physically couldn't get out there and do the conference circuit anymore and do the things that needed to be done to build this. But you're doing it, and I want to walk with you. And so together we've developed the 911 Chaplain Academy. Last fall, we trained 5 chaplains, and about a week ago, 16 chaplains from 14 different states graduated in San Antonio, Texas, with their certification. It's a 10-week hybrid program, mostly online, with the in-person intensive at the end, which was beautiful and it was so bonding. All the people who answered this call, they're all dispatchers. They're all career dispatchers. And they come from all backgrounds. Not everyone was Christian. There were some Catholic people. There were people Protestant, like all kinds of people, and they all have this thread. Well, I always say we have this gold thread that unites all of us in public safety communications, but they all have this thread of already being the listening ear in their center, already being the peer support person, or already being the person that people called on. Sometimes the word mama, sometimes the word daddy, but they already were these deeply caring people. And through the academy, we were able to equip them to serve their centers and those in our industry, and it's been so beautiful. It's just been a beautiful experience. The support we've gotten from sponsors, from the public has just been incredible and awe inspiring. And we had this moment at our graduation. I did a commencement address, and Reverend Edie did a commencement address, and they all came and got their certificates, and they had family fly in and drive in from all over the country. And I was like, this is real. I remember being in that nonprofit seminar crying, thinking, who will support this? Meanwhile, we had a church full of people supporting this. And, it's not, Reverend Edie says proselytizing. It's not, I'm not trying to save your soul, but it's the ministry of presence.
Mhm.
It's knowing that someone understands your experience, understands your stressors, understands your compassion fatigue, and they can speak to your heart, they can speak to your hurt, they can speak to your experience in a way that makes you feel safe, in a way that makes you feel heard. And since 1968, this is the first program of its kind. And that in itself is mind blowing because I ran from it. And my weekly 7 p.m. chaplain call that I put in my phone and saved 4 years ago gets used now. And I didn't realize that it was like a prophetic chaplain call, but I put it in my phone and it still pops up every Friday night at 7. And I'm just really honored to lead this initiative. And I think we're going to do some amazing things across the United States. Several states are leaning into wanting to do statewide programs for interfaith peer support or interfaith peer chaplain support, and we're leaning into it to train them and equip them to be able to support the goal line. Because there was a time where I'm the 911 chaplain, and every time something happened with a dispatcher across the country, I felt an enormous burden, as if, Lord, do I need to go? And I'm like, I don't have any money. We're a nonprofit. I can't go up there. But there was times where I wanted to be there and I couldn't. And when they graduated in September, this was a beautiful thing that happened. It was a horrible thing, but it was it was it was it was God. They graduated in September, and about a week later, Ryan Rogers messaged me that 5 deputies in York County, PA, had been ambushed and shot, and two had passed away. And so I reached out to my chaplains, my newly graduated chaplains, the five of them, and Reverend Edie, and I said, we need to pray. They say it was a dispatch on the channel. Her cat went down, and this is, I don't know what she's experiencing, the moral injury, the guilt, the pain of this situation, but we need to pray and see what we can do. And one of our chaplains, who's now on our board of directors, Marissa Moyer, she said, Brandy, I'm going to York next week. And I said, next week? She's like, in 3 days, I'm going to York. I was like, would you be willing to go by if I can get permission for you to go? And she says, of course. And this is, someone who, like, when we first started, she's like, I gotta pray out loud. What? um, so she goes to a biker church. She's so awesome. But Marissa was going there for vacation. She was already going up to Amish country for vacation. And I got permission. I reached out to Brianna Sestillo. She's their training coordinator at York, and she got permission for us to come by. And Marissa went in and walked around, introduced herself, and then she set up shop. And they came and spoke to her one by one and asked her to come back the next day. And they said, she called me that night. She says, Brandy, someone walks up to me and she says, they said, no one has ever done this. No one has ever checked on us after these calls. And she said, so Brandy, if you need any affirmation, any confirmation that what you're doing and what we're building is right, she says, I got it for us today. Across the country, many of us are not included in critical incident debriefings, or they may just bring the one person who took the call if they bring anyone. But our chaplains are CISM trained, and our chaplains are available while we need more around the country so they can come on out and help. But that moment was this beautiful full circle moment. It was just so tragic what happened, but we deal with tragedy. That's the nature of our industry, the nature of our job. So since it's the nature of our job, the nature of our job also has to include every kind of wellness that we need, because we deal with so much sadness and so much horrific imagery and sounds. So we need to have things there in place to support us in the aftermath of those things.
Wow. That is like, what are the odds? What are the odds that, and Marissa and I are good friends as well. I remember seeing that she was out there for that
Yeah,
first graduating class, and but again, what are the odds that she was going to be going out there already? And
yeah, because
then to
I
hear,
couldn't send her,
right,
and yeah,
that is, I mean, if you want anyone who is watching and listening, if you want any other example of a form of divine intervention, like that's to me, at least personally, that's how I feel that is right there.
yeah,
Like there was a hand there,
yeah,
definitely, and she was able to be out there, and then to hear folks from her that folks had said like no one's ever done this for us, like well done, like look how all of this ends up coming to
yeah,
be, and it just it looks like it's continuing to grow and you're doing great things. So wow,
yeah.
well done. That is amazing. And it has also been awesome to have you on
Thank
and to
you.
hear this story. And before I ask you my last question, what I want to ask before that is how can people find out more about the 911 Chaplain Initiative, everything you're doing, whether it's getting a hold of you, website, social media, anything like that, any other academies that are coming up as
Yeah,
well, and how people can take part? Like, where can they find more about you?
Awesome. So thank you for thank you for everything. Thank you for having me. Yeah, that story gets me too. So our website is goldlinechaplains.org. And we have most of our information about our programs, information about the academy, and all the things we do is all listed on our site. We are on most every form of social media, usually as the 911 Chaplain Initiative. So
Mhm.
Facebook, LinkedIn, we're the 911 Chaplain Initiative. TikTok and Instagram, Gold Line Chaplain. So at sign Gold Line Chaplains. I used to be on there as the 911 chaplain, but I'm now just Brandy empowered because I'm empower everybody.
I like it. I like it.
Right. But yeah, so I post most and I'm on LinkedIn, Brandy Powell. You'll see the 911 chaplain on there. I post a lot about what we do. We do have a our summer um cohort for the Chaplain Academy that is starting exactly 1 month from today. So you have time to get in it. We are taking up the applications are online. They're at enroll.goldlinechaplains.org. And you see the information, the different kinds of programs. If you just want to take a spiritual care class, the spiritual care class is something you can take. You have 10 lessons from Reverend Edie about being spiritually aware in 911, about spiritual wellness in 911. And so those are really amazing options that you can take. We are also looking to bring it to states if we have enough interest in a state. So right now we're looking at Utah, Alabama, trying to get people in those states to kind of say, yes, we would love to take this class, and we will bring the class. Myself and Reverend Edie will come for a week and train you to be a certified 911 chaplain. So the class that starts in April 27th, it ends in July. And the intensive, the 3 day in person intensive and graduation ceremony will be in North Carolina. So it will be in North Carolina because North Carolina APCO is sponsoring 5 people who want to attend the academy. So if you're in North Carolina, yes, and you're interested in going to the Chaplain Academy, North Carolina APCO has a program. They're building an interfaith peer support team. So,
Very
uh,
nice.
yes, I love the support. I'm super excited about it. We don't have booths at any conferences, but I'll be at Nina. I'll be at APCO. I'm the keynote in North Carolina in May. So, come
Well
and talk.
done.
Yeah, and ask questions and talk, and we'll work some things out. And then we'll have another class that starts in September. So we're in August. I'm sorry, another class that starts in August. So we're doing 3 terms this year. Reverend Edie says she wants to train 1,000 chaplains by the time she stops. We're at 23, so we got to keep moving.
Right.
We got to keep going. We got to get these numbers. We got to get these people, and then also just to be able to say, there was an incident in Ohio, and now I know that there's a chaplain in Ohio. So if she's in the vicinity, I know that if they're willing to receive her, there's a beautiful, wonderful person named Holly Robinson who's in Ohio who's willing to come. I have chaplains in so many states now. We got our first New York State applicant, and he's ready. We have people from all over, and we really just want people who feel this calling. You may already be a peer support person. You may already be the shoulder to cry on in your center, and you may want to understand how to be there for people in this capacity. And it's very, very good work. It's very needed work, and the bonding that takes place between our chaplains, they became family. It's beautiful.
Amazing. Ah, that is beautiful. That's perfect. Thank you again for everything that you do and that you're doing in this profession, and just keep going. Don't ever let anyone tell you different. Keep going. Do what you're
Thank
doing.
you.
And actually, after this episode and talking to you and everything, there's no one who could ever get in your way. So you just keep doing what you're doing. This is awesome. And this last question that I have for you, going into the wrap up, with these 18 years that you have in public safety, if you could go back in time, and this isn't to change anything because there's a lot of things that we go through that leads us to where we are at today. But if you could go back and maybe even just give yourself some advice or something, if you could go back in time to the beginning of your public safety career to talk to yourself, what would you tell yourself?
Whew. You know, I think I would tell myself from the beginning, I would tell myself that your softness, your sensitivity, your kindness is not a weakness. It's not a detriment to the job. It is a benefit. It is a strength. I would tell myself that um, this is a career, so that from day one I would understand the importance of everything that comes with the weight of the job, and that those moments and seasons of burnout, those moments and seasons where it was hard and difficult, that support is coming. And I see our industry changing, and I'm so optimistic for everyone who's in it now that your wellness matters, and that there will be people who care that you are well and that we will be well. So yeah, I would tell her to hold on.
I love it. That is perfect. Thank you again very much. And I will be right back here with you in just one moment. And for those who are watching and listening, if you have any comments, questions, or you ever want to be a guest on the show, you can email us. But the easiest way to do this is to simply go to links.co/I am 911. And that is links with two i's.co/I am 911. I recently redid a bunch of different things on there. So you'll be able to find my email, social media, where to follow, where to listen to the latest episodes of the Within the Trenches podcast, as well as the Imagine Listening podcast. My segment with Business Insider that is called How 911 Dispatchers Actually Work is on there as well. A link for the classes that I teach, as well as the link for the free community, the Trenches. You can find all of that there, where I have over 200 hours worth of continuing education for 911 professionals, as well as 45 rounds. That is 45 hours worth of the Dispatchers Roundtable, which is topics with a panel that we just go through all things 911. And then, of course, you have the Public Safety Showcase, which is a very mini version of Dare to Be Great. And it's a 1 day, 4, maybe 5 hours worth of speakers that are going and just talking about, again, just different topics that have to do with 911 and just all kinds of things. So make sure to check that out there. And then there are links for the Imagine Listening books, volume 1 and 2, and a link for the store for any Dispatcher podcast merchandise, so you can check it all out there. Once again, that is links with two i's.co/I am 911. This episode has been sponsored by Rapid SOS, Safer Together, the leading AI company in public safety, and also a shout out to subscribers. Thank you all very, very much for everything. This can be seen on Facebook, YouTube, as well as LinkedIn and X. And then I've got clips all over Facebook Reels, Instagram Reels, as well as TikTok. And then for both podcasts, you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone, and we will see you all in the next one. Imagine listening to someone's worst day every single day. Imagine listening as someone experiences life, through their worst nightmare to the miracle of birth or a life saved. I'm Ricardo Martinez, a former 911 dispatcher, and for years I've been recording the voices of a hidden world, ours. I've provided a space for 911 dispatchers to share their powerful stories. It started as a peer support session and continues. Dispatchers sitting together, sharing out loud, or writing down what they couldn't say. Some stories will grip you. Stories of heartbreak, resilience, and calls that haunt us long after the line goes quiet. But Imagine Listening is more than heavy emotion. It's about healing. It's about laughing through the chaos, lifting each other up, and reminding the world that dispatchers are human too. The lighthearted will balance the heavy. Experience the power of storytelling, a podcast for the thin gold line and those who want to understand it. This is Imagine Listening. Your worst day is our everyday. Subscribe now, wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.